welcome to A Wild New Work. This is a place where we listen to the land, to the ancestors, and to the wisdom that still resides within us so that we can bring an old and sturdy strength into the present moment. I'm Megan Leatherman, and I'm your host today. Hello, friend, and welcome to today's episode. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm really honored and delighted to be in this conversation with you. If you are new to the show or new to this season of the show, I'll just remind you that this is the second of 3 rituals that am doing at Oak Island, which is a place near Portland, Oregon, where I live. And so if you haven't already listened to the previous episode 167, I encourage you to do that first. Today, I am going to talk a little bit about my experience in ritual with this land in April. And I want to tell you about a connection I had with the oak trees there and some of the really life-giving medicine and messages that I received from these incredible beings. Like many of you, I'm sure oak is very, very important to me, this tree, this community of trees. And what I'm sharing today is part of a years-long unfurling of that relationship with oak, a remembrance of the relationship that my ancestors had with oak. And you have those relationships too. You have in your heritage relationships with more than human kin who you may still yearn for and who may still yearn for you. And I hope this conversation today feels really rich and enlivening in the ways that you need it. At the end of the episode, I want to share that my class, Composting Capitalism, which I'm sure many of you have taken, is coming back to life in a new format this June. And I also want to let you know about a campaign that I'm running to raise funds to do a feasibility study of a 440-acre piece of property called Silver Creek Canyon, which is home to many Oregon oaks. And that land is calling to me and calling to others. And it feels very important to take this next step toward that land. And I'm inviting people into that process. So if you have yearned to live in village with land or with other humans, or if you envision a place where there are commons again or wild lands where people can forage and be in relationship to the land in a good way, then I invite you to stay and hear more about that at the end. With that, why don't we go into our opening invocation and then we'll move into this experience with oak. May each of us be blessed and emboldened to do the work we're meant to do on this planet. May our work honor our ancestors and their ancient gods, and may it be in harmony with all creatures that we share this earth with. I express gratitude for all of the technologies and gifts that have made this possible, and I'm grateful to the Multnomah, Cowlitz, Bands of Chinook, and Clackamas nations, among many others, who are the original stewards of the land that I'm on. May this episode be one small stitch in the great reweaving of right relationship that so many Indigenous teachers are calling us into. Okay, well, I want to tell you the story of the land ritual that I did on April 29th. And this is a story from my perspective, my experience, and like everything I share anywhere, always, and especially today, I invite you to take what feels helpful and resonant to you and leave anything that is not. So, as you might remember from previous episodes, these rituals are containers that I create with intention, in which I step in and go to the land, or in the previous season, go to the ocean, and I ask for a message that I can bring back and share with you, with this community. And if you listened to episode 167, then you might know I came into the second ritual with a little bit of baggage. And I decided to keep it really loose and kind of light this time. So last time I had bought this like special mobile microphone that you hook up to your phone because I wanted to record the bird sounds for you out at Oak Island, and it didn't even work, and it really took me out of presence with the ritual. And so this time I decided, no documentation. I'm not going to pull out my phone for the entire ritual. I didn't really listen to any like ceremonial music like I usually do going in. I just went in sort of feeling good and light and not coming in with a lot of pressure on it. That felt really important. And it was a sunny, friendly day on the island. I felt good driving in. I got there, I parked, I greeted the land, and I went first to the old land spirit there who dwells inside of an oak tree. And before I went out on this day on April 29th, I did prepare in terms of going on a journey and visiting in my soulful way, visiting this old land spirit from my home and asking, about how to come in a better way and what would they like me to bring and do once I'm there. And I was told to begin with a song. And they showed me what the song was, and that this song really was coming like up from the earth through my body, and that it was an awakening song, a song to awaken the old land spirit and greet them. And so I sang that song right down into their roots. And then I moved into saying hello, and I brought the offerings that they had requested, homemade bread, water from a natural spring nearby, and a drop of my blood. And our connection felt really nice. It felt more solid. It felt clear, not with any like gunk in between, but just me in the presence of this incredible spirit, and there was ease. And so I asked for permission to be there that day to go and listen, and I felt that they granted that permission, and I was shown what they wanted the day to look like, which was to burn some sacred smoke to enter into a channeling space, to go on a walk to look for my staff, which I had left there in the previous ritual, or which the land may have taken from me. Then to go to the Oak Grove, and I didn't know where exactly, but I had a sense of where that would be on the island. And then to come back and check in with them at the end and burn smoke to close the ritual. So that was my mission for the day, and I burned smoke to begin and sort of stepped further into the ritual container. And then I took a walk to look for my staff. And again, this staff was or is a important part of a new kind of spiritual path, new-ish spiritual path that I have been exploring called Seidr, Seidr in the English alphabet. And in Seidr, as in many pagan traditions across Europe, there's a staff component. The staff is sort of a tool that's used to go into a trance, and it can also be used in various kinds of ritual, and it's really, really important. And you receive a staff in a ceremonial way, and I was given a staff by the land by a river many months ago, and it has become very important to me. And I take it out in my land rituals, and I was really, really upset to leave it behind last time. And after the last ritual, when I had to come home without it, I had to leave before I could go even look for it because I had to pick up my kids from school, and the staff was left about an hour away for my car. And I did my practice. I went into trance and tried to ask my ancestors, my guides, the old land spirit there about my staff. I'm sorry I left it. I understand why it got lost. This was an essential part of learning that I talked about in the last episode. And can I have it back? And I was assured in my journeys that the staff was safe. So I assumed that meant that it was safe and there waiting and that I would find it. And so I was walking toward where I knew I had left it and feeling really hopeful that it would be right there, leaning against the same tree I left it at. And I walk up and it's not there. And I go back and forth along the path. I look all around and around and around this area where I know I left it. I thought maybe I'm totally misremembering and I left it at the place where I did the ritual last time, which was about a quarter of a mile further in. So I went there and I walked through forested area and through an open area to the grove of trees where I did the last ritual, hoping it might be there. There's no staff. There's no staff to be found anywhere. And on my way to the ritual spot again, I passed three vertebra, which I assume are from a cow that died because there's a herd that lives out there. But they are these big vertebra from the spine of a cow. And there were, again, three of them kind of laying in the grass. And I remember passing them last time I was there for the first ritual, and I noticed them and thought they were cool, but I didn't feel compelled to pick them up or bring them home. And on my way to find the staff this time, I passed them again and I noted them, but I kept on. I was really focused on finding my staff. And at this point, I was feeling really heartbroken. I just can't believe it's gone. I thought they said it was safe. I thought it would be waiting here. Is this punishment? Why just upset about it. And so I left the ritual spot, walked back across the field, and I passed these vertebra again. And I just felt like they really wanted to be seen. So I stopped and again, I was feeling really upset about losing my staff, and I don't really take just anything from the land. I think it's important. You'll know when you're out on the land when something is really a gift and when it's just something beautiful to admire but leave there. But for some reason, on the way back, I felt really compelled to take one of these vertebra with me. So I said, okay. I picked it up and said, thank you. I put it in my backpack and I kept on. And I went back to the tree where I thought I left my staff. I'm pleading with the land, please, please. I'm singing my special songs, and there was just no staff. It was gone. So I was trying not to throw a temper tantrum, and I kind of reluctantly decided it was time to move on to my next task to go visit the oak grove. So I got off the main human trail and I followed some cow trails and some smaller game trails through the bush, letting my intuition just lead. And after a while, I looked up and there was Eagle, the first eagle I had seen that day, circling overhead to my right. And then they circled and circled, heading east overhead, circling further to my left, further east, and I felt guided to follow, to go that way. And sure enough, I came into an immense oak grove, a council of great oaks in a circle with a sweet meadow full of snowberry right in the middle. And it was so peaceful. And one oak in particular caught my eye. It was a huge tree with a very large branch that had broken off and fallen onto the ground. And I'm not sure why, but I just really wanted to be near them. So I walked over and I said hello and I told all the trees and told this tree how beautiful they were and what I was doing there. And I asked to sit and rest a while, and I felt invited to do so. And I just relaxed and spent time with them, admiring their beauty and the quiet and the birds, admiring their presence and just feeling held by the land there. Even in my grief and disappointment about my staff and my confusion about what it meant about this path I'm on. And they really, I think, helped me just come into presence again. And after some quiet, I felt ready to go deeper. I felt ready for our listening ritual. So I sent my energy down into the earth, into where their roots are. And with my eyes closed, I saw a spiral going clockwise, spiraling and spiraling. And then it was like I saw a memory and also felt that memory in my womb. I was with an ancestor who I know and work with on my father's line, who is from my peoples who lived in Germany and who knew oak very, very well. And I got these flashes of scenes, children climbing in the branches of oak, the people building with the wood of oak, gathering acorns in the fall, the people dying and being buried at the base of the oaks and their bodies nourishing their beloved oak kin. And with these images came a yearning so strong and a remembrance of the kind of love and relationship that my people had with the oak peoples. They were family, friends, best friends, each tree known and loved, or at the minimum respected and admired. And my whole body became this cauldron filled with love and grief and yearning, knowing that we are meant to be together, Oak and I, the people and the oaks, that we are kin. And the vision faded, and I just cried. I told the oaks there how much I want to just live among them again, how much I want to make life with them like my ancestors did, how I wish my home was built of them, how I wish I knew how to harvest acorns and use their flour in a good way, how much I wish my children could know them and play among them, how I wish we did ceremony and ritual at their base. I told them how sad I was that we have been separated for so long and that it's not just me, but that so many people miss them. The people miss them. So many people long for them and for other tree kin that their ancestors knew. I told the oaks in this grove that we have not forgotten them, that we still love them, and that so many people are trying to be good to them again. And I sensed that the oaks long for us too. And I couldn't help but just exclaim my love for them. And after a little while, I was ready to go. After I had wept as much as I needed to, I said goodbye and I just told every oak that I passed on my way how much I loved them. I hugged this oak. I said, I love you. You're so beautiful. I love you. I love you. I love you. I remember. I remember. I feel it in my body. The people remember. And it was just a total love fest. And there were no other humans for me to appear crazy to. And it took me a while to walk back to the old land spirit, to that great oak. But when I did, I said thank you. I still couldn't understand why my staff wasn't there, but I decided I would just have to let that go for now. And we had a short conversation, and then I burned smoke to close the ceremony, and I headed home. And since this day with Oak, I have done some more work to digest what happened. understand it and understand what was most essential for me to bring forward to you all today. I really want these episodes to be really useful for you and your practice, however it looks right now, whether you spend time out with the land or are more based at home, but enjoy hearing about the land and the beings there. So, I want to talk a little bit about some of the primary components of this ritual and then talk about oak more specifically. So, I want to talk first about song. Your songs, no matter how you sound or what they are, but the energy behind your song, behind human singing, is so important and is very, very missed by the land and the beings there. In lots of different spiritual traditions and shamanic practices, song is a way to call the spirits in, to awaken the spirits of the land, to put up a protective boundary. And the song that I sang to Oak came from that old land spirit, came up from the ground and came through my body. And it's a really lovely way to center yourself going into ritual. And it's also a wonderful way to awaken or greet the beings on the land where you are or where you're headed into. So I encourage you to let yourself be led into song, either from the land themselves or bringing a song that's meaningful to you. It could be also an old folk song from the place of your peoples and your ancestry, if you can find one. I know it may take some digging these days. You can also always ask your wise and well ancestors directly for a song if you are in touch with them or have a relationship with them. But song is really, really important and loved by the land and the beings there. Second, I want to talk a little bit about the offering of blood that I brought this time. And I'm certainly not into like blood sacrifices. I know that's a part of lots of traditions and has been more in the past, but that's not what we're talking about here. This was a single drop of blood. And I do believe that blood has a resonance that's special, that's unique. It's like if you bring blessed water that has a specific kind of resonance. It's an offering that does something for the land, for the being that you're giving it to. And blood is the same. Blood is the flow of your life force. It's made in your bones. It's carrying your ancestral knowing. It's a way to introduce yourself, to make yourself known and to offer a drop of your blood to the land or to a being there can be a way to offer your kinship, to create a bond, to deepen your relationship. And personally, I have only done this a few times, and two of those times have been with oak trees. I did it once with an oak tree in England during a ceremony, and now with an oak tree on Oak Island. And in both cases, it was a sort of commitment ceremony, a bonding, a repair of a connection that I wasn't super aware of when I did it in England, but I'm now very aware of after working through my father's line who carry this kinship with oak. And for some of us, it can start to sound really weird or silly to talk about having a kinship with trees or other plant beings or other animal beings. But if that's coming up for you, I would invite you to consider what it would be like to rely completely on the land for your shelter, your food, your clothing, and for community and wisdom and medicine as well. To consider what it was like for your long, long ago ancestors who were not distracted all the time by screens or machines, who moved at the pace of walking, who were born into life hearing the birds and hearing the wind in particular trees. If you lived like that, your whole consciousness would be attuned to the landscape that you lived in. Your heart awakened to it all. No meaningful separation really between you and the other beings on the land where you lived. And if we're talking about our long, long ago ancestors who lived before monotheistic religion or before civilization, then they would have been born into cultures that recognized the other beings on the land as sentient, alive, aware, with soul, who related to them as people who deserved respect at least, and who also could be known and loved. So that was actually the reality for your ancestors, the people whose bodies gave life again and again to eventually make your body. And this is what I think we're being asked to tap back into now. This awareness, this different attunement, and it still lives inside of us. This still lives in us. If I hadn't gone looking for my staff, I wouldn't have come across those bones again. And I don't think that this vertebra replaces my staff, but I am still very grateful for it. And I think my staff is safe, like they said. It's just not with me right now. And I still hope to find it, and I'm still curious to understand what it means. But setting that aside for now, this bone feels really, really important and special. And I didn't realize until a week or so later that this vertebra is now sitting on my altar next to the lingcod jawbone that I received during an ocean ritual in January, which I talk about in episode 164. So now I have a jawbone, a mouth, an ocean mouth, and part of a spine, a part of the trunk of our own tree bodies, if you will. In the five element system that I study and work with, bones are the mineral element. And mineral is the phase or process or these beings that are connected to deep, deep time. Bones, stones, the periodic table of elements. Mineral is what is essential, what is enduring. These bones are the last part of us to decompose into the earth. It is what endures longer than anything else. And it feels like the land wanted me to have this to remind me to stay focused there, to stay focused on what is essential and enduring, that I don't have to have a staff or my portable microphone or any other tools, that the way into this work, the way that we hear the land, is already carried inside of us. It is literally in our structure, in the way that we hold ourselves up and move. All of us have ancestors who had this same blood, these same kinds of bones, who walked this same earth and felt these same emotions that we feel every day: fear, contentment, jealousy, anger, joy. And while humans are a relatively young species, especially compared to the oak trees, we need to remember the parts of us that are old too, the essential components of being a human animal. And one of those essential parts is being in good relationship with trees. I know I don't need to tell you that humans evolved thanks to trees. If you've seen pictures of the human lungs, they have almost the exact same pattern as tree roots. Our energy goes down into the earth as roots. Our crowns reach toward the sky. Our arms and hands are like branches that can hold and carry. The air we breathe is a gift from the trees. Trees are revered across indigenous cultures because they make life possible for us, and not just possible, but beautiful. That is an essential truth. That is sacred. We must remember that. We must remember it and then live as if that is true. And I'm sure you do already remember that. And I know that many of you share my yearning to live well among the trees again. And sometimes I feel this yearning so strongly, it's like it's going to burst out of me. And that day in the oak grove, I was able to express it, just declaring my love in a way that would again, appear crazy to lots of people, but I just had to give life to this love I feel for oak and how much I miss the intimate relationship that I saw my ancestors had. And I want to talk a little bit about this precious, incredible being. The oaks that I was connecting with on Oak Island are the Oregon white oak. It's the only native oak species from this area specifically. There are trees on Sauvie Island. I'm not sure where. I'm not sure if they are some of the trees that I have seen there, but I know there's are reports of trees, oak trees on Sauvie Island that are up to 500 years old. These oaks, like almost all oaks, rely on disturbance in the ecosystem in order to not be taken over by conifers like Douglas fir. And that disturbance has most often been fire, which indigenous peoples here practiced and still practice intentionally burning to nurture the land and help beings like oak to thrive. And fire suppression, which was legalized as Europeans came and settled this place, fire suppression is a big reason why the Oregon oak has been taken over in many areas or is really suffering. In addition, not just fire suppression, but also, of course, urbanization, clearing land for livestock, etc. We know that things are not great for the oak trees among us. The Oregon oak, like oaks almost everywhere, was revered as a source of strength and protection among the indigenous peoples who lived among them here. And while I couldn't find any specific stories about how the Multnomah peoples of Oak Island related to the oaks, I think it's safe to say that they would have held important ceremonies underneath the shade of oak. They would have made medicine from their bark and included acorns in their diet. And these oaks, the oaks on Oak Island, are a part of a family of ancient trees that is millions and millions of years old. And the oak tree traveled and adapted to climates around the world, the Americas, of course, Europe, the Mediterranean, Asia. I read about an oak tree sanctuary dedicated to Gaia, the mother of the earth, in modern Greece, and that site dates back to about 8 BC. And there is an oak tree still living there now at this sacred site, but the original tree was cut down at the onset of Christianity in the region. Many of these oak groves, many sacred trees were cut down through Christianization because they were so sacred to the peoples in those places. It was part of the sort of campaign of domination and empire. The Druids, of course, frequently worshipped and practiced rites in oak groves, and many scholars believe that the word Druid derives from Proto-Indo-European roots and means the knower of the oak tree, the oak knower, or the oak seer. So, oaks are revered around the world, and this is also very personal for me. I relate to the oak tree as an ancestor. And in our Weaving with the Ancestors class, one of the things that we do as part of that weaving, reweaving of right relationship with our ancestry, we meet and get to know either the nature kin that our ancestors had relationships with. So your peoples, your ancestors would have had intimate relationships with certain beings that they shared the land with. And sometimes those nature beings will show up not just as helpers, but as actual ancestors, which on a fundamental level is the case. If the oak trees are millions and millions of years old, and if an ancestor is a being who gives you life, it's not a stretch to say that the oak is an ancestor. And that's how I relate to them and have been taught to relate to them. And in some of the follow-up work I did with oak after this ritual, they wanted to make really clear that the oak tree is strong. The oak is strength embodied, and it is a strength that humans need now. And after I felt that or received that, sure enough, I started doing research, and strength is a word that came up over and over and over again in the ways that people across time have known oak, that people just understand that the oak offers a strength that is different than what we may be used to and is really, really important. So I yearn for oak and oak's gifts. I know that many of you do as well, and it's not weird. And if it's not oak for you, it will be some other tree that carries a long ago sort of echo or reverberation of intimacy and reverence and importance. You may be drawn to a certain tree and not really understand why. Rowan, banyan, cedar, Bodhi tree. Humans everywhere have understood the importance of this relationship. And your ancestors knew that, and it's time for you to remember that. Many of us today are less alive than we could be, are less strong than we could be because of how our relationship between us and these incredible trees has been damaged. We miss them. We miss the fresh air they create, the feel of their solidity, their beauty, their medicine, and their food. We yearn for them. We need them, even if we're not aware of it, or even if we've never put that into words before. And I believe the oak yearns for us too. If we have ancestors, other humans who gave us life, made life possible for us, then the oaks have ancestors too. If we have ancestors, then so do the deer and eagle, the fish, the fungi, all beings here on this land now as the descendants of ancestors from long ago who had relationships with human people. This is a mutual remembrance. The oak trees wonder, where are the humans now? They miss our songs, our dance, our ceremonies, our laughter. The land misses you. The land misses your people. The land misses humans coming in a good way. And in my ritual at Oak Island, I just felt this profound knowing that I want to be with Oak. I have to be with Oak, and Oak wants to be with me too. And it's really that simple. We want to be together. And the space between us doesn't have to be so wide. If you yearn to be with certain beings or with a type of land or to be with a body of water, they yearn for you too. And you can trust that yearning. And we don't have to be kept so far. It's true that there are things that have kept us apart. The damage has been severe and deep. But I didn't cut down those sacred oak groves. I didn't destroy those sacred wells that my ancestors prayed to. It wasn't me, and it wasn't you. And we are not too far gone to come back, to follow that yearning, to be connected and in relationship again. So the structure of our lives, the ways that we're forced to live inside of capitalism, they do keep us apart. That's true. It was a privilege for me to get to go spend a day in an oak grove. Many people don't have that luxury. The housing options that are available to most of us are not homes built out of trees that we love and knew and asked permission to cut down. They're not homes built inside of a landscape in a good way where we're connected to the spirits of the land there. We are forced to go very, very fast, driving inside of machines, on the screens. I understand the structure of our lives makes it feel like we're very far from these relationships that we might yearn for, these knowings and relationships that live inside of our bones still. But it's not just the structures. There are also these myths and stories that keep us apart, that are big, to be sure, but are so vaporous and untrue that they can just sort of immediately be composted into the earth so that we can step closer to these beings and life ways that we yearn for from our bones. One of those myths is the myth of danger. This story that it's not safe for us to be out there with the oak trees. It's not safe for us to go wander among the cedars or forage or collect food. It's not safe to eat the food from the earth. It's not safe to be out there. It's not safe. That's a myth. Of course, there's dangers out there. Of course, you have to be smart, but there's dangers inside the city as well. And so the fear that keeps so many of us far from the wild places that could really, really nourish us, that fear is something that can be seen and accepted, but also given back to the earth. And maybe it's not so true. Maybe it doesn't have to be so intense. For me, there's also this myth of inadequacy, this belief I have that I'm confronting now that I don't know enough to live, with the oaks. I don't know, how to be with them, how to be with the land. And this is coming up so much because I am finally taking seriously this dream I have to purchase with other people this 440 acres in Silver Creek Canyon outside of Silverton, Oregon. And this is a place where the oak is well established, where the oak thrives, where the oak, I believe, needs human stewards who will love them and listen to them. And it's really scary. I mean, I like legitimately don't have experience doing this. But there's also this sort of big story that isn't founded so much in truth that I cannot figure it out, that I am like not someone who could live in a better way with the land again. And I just think it's part of this larger story that the way we live now inside of urban centers or inside of little homes in our nuclear families and with all of the modern conveniences and hiring everyone else to do everything. And, this whole story that I'm a completely not resilient person who cannot live, that I am like absolutely dependent upon this system or this way of living. Some of that is true. I have so much to learn. There's so much I don't know how to do for myself. But does it have to be true? If you would like to live in a very modest dwelling inside of an oak grove or along a creek or at the base of a mountain, is it really true that you cannot do that, that we cannot learn how to live in a different way? That's a story that keeps us far from what we yearn for and keeps us far from these beings who I really believe also yearn for humans again to come in a good way, to be in relationship with them. And finally, there's this whole big story that I'll just call like the myth of doom, the myth that we are too far gone. It's this myth that we've lost any hope of connecting to the old land spirits again. We've lost the knowing of how to hear the trees. We've lost all of our songs. We've lost our stories. We've lost all of our ceremonies and rituals. We've lost a path into reconnection, that it's just not possible anymore. And I refuse to believe that. I do not believe that's true. I have seen many of you listening. I have seen you take up some of these very basic primitive skills to listen to the land again, to reclaim that connection, to reconnect to your wise and well ancestors and be guided into a different kind of relationship to the land. And I have heard your stories of being seen and told, of receiving messages, of feeling connection and kinship again. So this is absolutely still worth trying. And we can allow our bodies to lead. Blood and bone, that is what will lead us into this relationship again. Your body will know what to sing to the trees, where to go, how to touch them, what to say. And of course, in terms of making medicine or building, there's plenty of resources and indigenous knowledge that we can learn about, and we can ask our own wise and well ancestors. But as long as we have these bodies, we are not too far gone. You are alive now in a time of great loss. That is true. I feel very afraid for the oak trees here who are not getting the space and intentional fire that they need. That's part of the reason I feel called to that land, to the oaks down there. But this is also a time of remembrance and reclaiming. The grief is here, yes, absolutely. But you do not need to be kept far from that which you love. Could you live as if the trees are your kin? Will you feel your love for them and the way that you want to be together again? The time you would like to spend at their base under their shade, the way you would like to feel their solid trunk at your back, the messages you would like to share with them or receive from them. You can feel your way into reconnection. This dead culture, this culture of capitalism cuts us off from so much feeling. It paradoxically cuts us off from so much, but also floods us with fear and urgency and scarcity. And so we miss out on the full range of human experience, the full range of feeling and connection, which does and should include the peace and joy of being held by the land, by being in relationship, knowing and being known by great trees such as the oak. So we may not know exactly how to begin living in a different way. We may not even know what an oak tree looks like. That's okay. But that yearning inside of us, that longing, that love that still lives in our bones, the memories that we have of our ancestors who loved these beings and knew how to make life with them, could that be enough? Can we get to know how to be with the land again? Not idealizing it, but not dismissing it either. One of the things that I bump up against when I share with people my yearning to live in village with the land and with other humans again is a lot of times people will subtly or not so subtly say that I'm being idealistic about it. That it sounds cute or it's sort of a dream, but in reality, I would really miss such and such and such, or, humans, essentially saying like humans aren't meant to live that way. It always falls apart. And I'm just trying to sort of sit with and live into those questions because I really believe that what we want to do, what we yearn to do, is what we're meant to do. And can we follow those yearnings without creating a fantasy, but without dismissing them either? Most people I work with who come to my classes are very, very good at dismissing the visions and longing that they feel. Oh, I couldn't do that. I can't spend a day with the Oaks, or I couldn't be that kind of healer. I couldn't live that way. I'm not meant for that. But the yearning remains. It's the longing they feel in the morning when they wake up or when they're out in a beautiful place. And part of our work is listening to that longing and believing in it again and trusting that if I have a desire to go toward a certain being, it could be that they long for me too. And that yearning, when I allow my body to lead, that yearning is informed by something very, very old that I can trust. And there's a different kind of like ripple effect that comes off of this. Who do we become when we allow ourselves to remember that longing, to feel that longing, and to choose to move in the direction of that longing, to choose to spend time with the great trees that your ancestors knew, that you feel a connection to? It may look weird to others or feel weird at first, but I bet you will feel alive. What is it to know a tree, to really know a tree, to be a knower of the oak or an oak seer? Imagine spending so much time with these teachers, making a life with these teachers, that you become incredibly strong, sturdy, awakened through fire, your strength becoming life for others for a long, long time after you are gone. If we are only learning from human culture, if we are only listening to other humans, we will become lost. And now it's not just other humans. Now we're listening to machines and robots and AI bots. So the risk of becoming lost is increasing. I often feel like if you're not able to hear a tree, if you're not able to communicate with a tree, you have no business communicating with AI. Like, I feel like there should be like a requirement that you know how to attune to other life forms before you are attuning and giving your entire self to a machine that is killing our planet. So, this pattern of only hearing from other humans, of only hearing from culture, from empire, from capitalism, from artificial intelligence, it makes us spiritually weak. We are cut off from the strength of oak, from the strength of cedar, from the strength that is alive in the land around us. And if you are descended from settlers like me, or if you live far from where your ancestors are from, then you may not live among your native trees anymore. And that's another kind of loss. But there may be other kinds of kin around you who still remember humans, who still long for your presence. You may be able to connect with similar species or adapt and make community right where you are. No matter where in the world you are or what ancestral memories live in your bones, there is connection here for you. If there is a yearning that lives inside of you, let it meet the yearning of the land. I am constantly in awe of the magical way that life weaves around us, the way things come in at the right time, or the threads we become aware of when we are paying attention, when we believe that life wants to be in conversation with us. And one of those little glimmers is that this year a red oak sprouted in my front yard. It's a little gift from a squirrel ambassador. And there's not technically room for it where it's growing right now, but I want to make room for it. I want to have oak right here at my home. They came, they came, and it's a huge gift, and I want to make a home for them here because we are truly in this together. You, me, the oaks, all of these incredible beings that we share this planet with, who are strong and resilient, who remember us. This is our home. We can make home together. We are in this together, and we will get through this together. Okay, my friend, that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope it felt enlivening to you. I want to say thank you to the members of Eagle Creek for supporting me and this show financially. I encourage you to contribute if this podcast is meaningful to you. Last week in Eagle Creek, I shared a little bonus class going deeper into the topic of old land spirits and the folklore around these entities, especially in pagan Europe. And that's available for you anytime if you'd like to join us in Eagle Creek. And there will be more follow-up materials coming for this podcast, as well as a special series for the summer, which I'm excited to share about soon. If you can't contribute $45 a month for Eagle Creek, I still welcome your dollars at buymeacoffee.com/Megan Leatherman, and also your shares of the show, your reviews on Apple Podcasts, your kind words are all so, so valuable. And I know that we are making this show together, and I'm really, really grateful for that. You can learn about Eagle Creek at awildnewwork.com/Eagle-Creek. I also wanted to let you know that composting capitalism is coming back in a new way. I am creating a self-paced version of this class that will become available on June 16th. And it will be all of the same material. So we'll go through every chapter of Silvia Federici's book, Caliban and the Witch, which is a book about the origins of capitalism in Western Europe and through colonization of the Americas. And it's an incredible book. It's an incredible way to understand what capitalism really is, how it really works, how it affected your ancestors, no matter where they were from around the world, and how it lives and creates itself again and again today. And we will also cover three of the major antidotes to capitalism: land connection, folk magic, and generous exchange. So if you have wanted to take the class in the past, but maybe couldn't make it to the live offerings or didn't want to just do the recordings, this is an option that might work better for you. The recordings will be shorter because they won't include the discussion, but all of the material will be essentially the same and life-giving, and there will be reflection prompts and guided visualizations that you can do, and I'll be holding you as you journey through the class, and available for any questions that you have along the way. The best way to find out when that goes live would be to join my email newsletter community if you haven't done that already, but you can also learn more at awildnewwork.com/composting-capitalism. Finally, I want to talk a little bit more tangibly about Silver Creek Canyon. I've talked about it a little bit in this episode so far, but this is, again, a vast piece of property that is for sale outside of Silverton, Oregon, that has called to me for the last year and a half or so. I've done lots of ritual around this. I believe that this is an essential part of my calling at this time, and I need help. I don't want to do it alone. I can't do it alone. So, a really lovely next step has bloomed in this direction, which is to fund a feasibility study to partner with a real estate broker named Nat Andreni in Portland, who is wonderful and who can do a study of this property and help us understand what all of the different zoning requirements are, what could be built on this property, and how many humans could this property support, what might the land need, what beings are on the land, what has the history of this land been, all of this really good information that would help us understand if this is the right place to keep moving toward village. So I am calling in your involvement, and fundraising actively for that. We need to get to $8,500. And so far we've raised a really good chunk, but have a long way to go. So you can learn more about that at awildnewwork.com/land. And everybody who contributes to the fundraiser will be sent the final copy of the study, as well as possible next steps and moving toward this dream together. So I invite you to learn more, and I welcome you into this wild adventure. And I think that's what I have. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for listening. I hope this episode was a blessing to you. And I will be back with you in a few weeks to share the last of the 3 land rituals that I'll be doing at Oak Island. And I'm really curious to see what that land has for us next. I hope you take such good care between now and then, and I will see you on the other side.